Melinda would have spotted it as a fake in a second, but not her dad. We had a meeting where he tried to convince me to give Melinda another chance. He said that he was willing to pay a lawyer to keep the divorce from happening. So I showed the video to her dad. I told him this was one of the easier ones to view and that I had hours of the stuff. Evidently, he was very effective in persuading Melinda to drop her opposition. I guess I would be too if an irate son-in-law was threatening to email the video to everyone and anyone they knew, family, friends, co-workers, etc. The clincher when all was said and signed was the joint custody. Alternating weeks, I made sure that there was specific and clear language in the agreement that Melinda was prohibited from bringing her lovers. I insisted that the plural be used into the house. You know what's funny? The last thing I expected when getting divorced was the effect it seemed to have on women. I'd be lying if I didn't say that my own self-esteem had taken a huge hit after being seen by Melinda. You can't help but feel you're not much of a man. At the very least, you must be a lousy lover. I was shocked to find out that my new marital status, or lack thereof, was like catnip to women. During the divorce, I had stubbornly taken the high ground regarding revenge or even dating for that matter. That just wasn't who I was. Plus, my lawyer insisted on no additional complications. But as an officially single man with good credit and plenty of disposable income, suddenly, I was a catch. And you want to know what was even better? There were a lot of women out there determined to see me through this difficult time. I was pleasantly surprised at the number of women willing to help me get me back in the saddle, so to speak. They were so persistent that I began to look forward to my time living at home with the kids. I needed the rest. I had offers from women at work, from acquaintances, including some who were good friends with Melinda, and even from fellow residents of my new apartment building where I stayed during my off week. This is how the first time happened while I was still moving into my new place. I'd ordered pizza, so the soft knock indicating its arrival wasn't unexpected. The delivery person sure was. I recognized her as someone I'd seen in the building. I didn't know her name. "Hi, my name is Darlene." She pronounced it Darlin. With it in, and I'd just like to welcome you to the building. Darlene was average-looking and had an easy-to-like quality about her. I invited her in, and we shared the pizza and a couple of beers. Darlene was divorced. He tried to F everything, she said, personable, plumpish, and refreshingly straightforward. "Tim, I like you. You seem like a real nice guy. So anytime you need the company of a woman, you just call old Darlene." I nodded unknowingly. I almost started to say that I could handle the cooking and cleaning just fine. As a freshly single guy, I was really clueless. Darlene had spoken so clearly and matter-of-fact. "Now, let's see that D of yours yet." Darlene had my zipper down. She looked at it with a critical eye. "If you're enjoying my content, consider joining my Patreon community. By becoming a patron, you'll get access to full parts of my videos much earlier than everyone else. Plus, you'll be supporting me to create even more awesome content for you. Check out the link in the description to join now." "Well, all right, Tim. You've got a good one here. Lucky me." It was, without a doubt, the weirdest proposition I had ever received. I can't begin to describe what she was doing, mostly because my head was tilted back. The next night the BJ was repeated. By the end of night, we were doing it. I'd managed to convince her that the pizza dinner we'd shared the night before counted as being a date. We started frequently. Not that we were exclusive, far from it. A couple of weeks after we'd taken up, Darlene had to go out of town on business during one of my off weeks. So she sent a friend over. Rhonda wasn't into near as much as Darlene. But, oh God, could that woman Rhonda did things that were unbelievable. The thing was great, if a little empty. I freely admit that I missed the intimacy that Melinda and I had once had. On the other hand, that missing only fueled my continuing anger toward her. I made no effort to hide my amorous activities from her. I enjoyed seeing that hurt in her eyes every Sunday evening. Slowly things settled into a routine. Even the kids seemed to be doing okay. Holidays were painful, especially the first time through, but we managed. Months became years, and we all got older if not wiser. It was 4 years post-divorce that the unexpected happened. I fell in love. The kids were involved in a youth group at church. The group went on all kinds of outings, including a couple of snow weekends each winter. I was asked to chaperone on occasion and was more than happy to help out. It was during a ski trip that Jillian, one of the other chaperones, She was the sister of one of the youth ministers, broke her arm. After first aid was rendered by the ski patrol, I was asked to run her down the hill to get it x-rayed and put in a cast. The hospital, once we got there, was swamped due to a traffic accident, and we ended up going across the street to eat and kill a couple of hours. Jillian was cute, rather than beautiful, and all of 25. As we talked and ate, I became aware that we had real chemistry between us. I found myself deeply attracted to Jillian. She did nothing to dissuade me. It took me a month to summon the courage to ask her out on an official date. After all, I was 21 years her senior. She accepted. She told me her dad was 12 years older than her mom and they were still together, and we began to date. I slowly let go of my harem over the next few weeks as Jillian and I got serious. Everything was happening fairly fast. Jillian and I were a couple of months into our relationship. Yep, that's what it was. When Melinda asked if I was in love with Jillian, I was all prepared to deny it when I realized I couldn't lie about something like that. I answered with a quiet yes. Melinda just nodded and then hugged me. You deserve to be happy. I was stunned. 1. That I realized that I really did love Jillian. 2. That Melinda sensed and accepted it. And 3. When I told this to Jillian, she simply smiled and said it had taken me long enough. For the first time in years, I realized that I was truly happy. I was actually content within myself. That was when I understood that there was something very important that I needed to do. I had accepted Melinda's apology for her unfaithfulness years ago, but at the time I refused to forgive her. It was time for me to formally forgive Melinda. During the drive over, I recalled Melinda's effort at apology and explanation. The first time hardly counted. It was just before we signed divorce and custody agreements. Melinda had asked for a half-hour meeting. Just the two of us. Before signing, I knew what she was going to try and talk me out of divorce. I went prepared. On the way to the meeting, I played recordings of Melinda extolling Ernie. I spent the entire half hour looking at her like she was less than dog S. When the half hour was up, I looked at my watch and picked up a pen. She knew she had failed. Her second attempt was just after our first round through the holidays, the first time we celebrated as a split-apart family. Due to a quirk in the calendar, I ended up with the kids for Thanksgiving and Christmas. It was a miserable time, and early in January, Melinda asked to speak with me. That's when I found out she knew I was dating, or as she termed it, your open door, open fly bimbo policy. It went downhill from there. Look, Tim, I know I messed up. I've caused a lot of pain in our family. Our family, Tim. The holidays were horrible for me, for you, and for the kids. We've all suffered. I know that you've been with a number of different women, and it's just tearing me apart. We are meant to be together, Tim. All of us. I've scheduled an appointment for us with a couples counselor. It's time we got back together. I've learned my lesson. I was aghast. I was so surprised, so stunned at what Melinda had just said that I couldn't respond at first. Then the anger began to flow, and my mind crystallized into cold focus. Learned your lesson? Yes, Tim. I will never lie to you again. I will be completely honest. Melinda looked at me with an expression of complete earnestness. I guess that she believed her own bullshit. I see. What about your lovers? Does that mean you're planning on giving them up? Singular, not plural. I haven't talked to or seen Ernie since that horrible day. Unlike you, I haven't dated anyone. Oh, I see. I looked at her and nodded my head slowly. So then it's just straight to the sack, or does a back seat or park bench work just as well? How dare you? I have not been with any other man, period. Unlike you and your pee-on-parade lifestyle. I could see that she was getting pretty wound up. I just let her go. Do you have any idea how painful it is to know that you leave the kids and spend your week fucking anything that's willing? 1, we're not married, Melinda. 2, I'm a single guy now. And 3, like that means anything. You and I belong together. It doesn't matter that you're single. It's still cheating on me. You should stop playing around and give us a chance to get back together. I'd had enough. Look, Melinda, if you're horny, come on by some night and we can party. I always had a fantasy of you, me and another woman. That was pretty much the end of that conversation. Melinda would try again every 6 months or so. It was only about a year ago that she was able to apologize with any real sincerity. She'd been in therapy, and I guess it seemed to help. I realized that as soon as she began to speak, Even the tone of her voice was softer than usual. Tim, I want to start off by saying that I don't believe that I will ever be able to realize how deeply I hurt you with my betrayal of our marriage and my unconscionable lying to cover it up. I can't begin to tell you how sorry I am for the pain I've caused you and the kids, all because of me selfishness. It's only through therapy that I've come to understand how despicable and disgusting my behavior was. I am truly sorry. Apology accepted. Melinda went on to tell me that her infidelity, she never called it anything else after that, was a result of undiagnosed depression, a midlife crisis, and a complete breakdown in her values, morals, and ethics. She had done it, been unfaithful, simply because she could. When all was stripped away, that's what she was left with. Ernie was not some amazing lover, just different. His weren't anything special. The cheating made it seem better. There was nothing romantic or seductive about the way she met Ernie. It was work-related. She met him while I was away on business, and they had danced and flirted on a Friday night after work. Ernie had kept in touch with Melinda after I'd returned. That was when the deceptions began. That's when Melinda realized how thrilling it was to sneak around behind me. It became a game between her and Ernie. The next time I left town for a couple of days, he had talked her into taking a half-day off. He took her to a restaurant in the lobby of a downtown hotel. They had flirted outrageously during the meal and drunk a fair amount of wine. He asked her if she was interested in dessert and offered a suggestion, the specialty of the house. He slid a room key across the table. Melinda said she was flattered and declined Ernie's offer. He talked her into at least checking out the view. Once in the room, she realized that it had no view. Ernie said the prettiest view in the world was standing right in front of him. Melinda said that she just stood there looking at him, aroused out of her mind. Ernie pushed her up against the wall, reached up under dress. To this day, she said she had no recollection of him unzipping. He F'd her savagely against the wall. It was the wickedest, nastiest thing she had ever done. They F'd for the rest of the afternoon. When I returned, she took care of her guilt by paying extra attention to me. Only she was already waiting for the next time I'd be out of town. Eventually, she became so comfortable with cheating on me, she didn't wait for me to be out of town. That went on until I caught her. When she was done, I repeated that I accepted her apology and left it at that. I purposefully did not say that I forgave her. That's why I needed to do that before getting serious with Jillian. I needed to forgive Melinda so I could move forward. You should have seen the tears that Sunday night, Melinda. Me, the kids. We were all bawling our eyes out. Some tears were tears of sorrow and regret. Most were happy tears. I told Melinda that despite it all, there was a part of me that would always love her. She said that she had never stopped loving me. I nodded in understanding. Nothing is forever. That's always a tough one to learn. I loved Jillian and she loved me. We were happy in our relationship, but both of us acknowledged that marriage was not in our future. For one thing, Jillian wanted kids, and I'd had a vasectomy just after Chana was born and was unwilling to consider reversal. Needless to say, our time together had an expiration date. It's just that neither of us knew what it was. We found out all too soon. During one of my off weeks, on a Saturday afternoon to be specific, Jillian was lying on top of me after a particularly vigorous session of lovemaking when her mom called. Jillian's dad was in the hospital, felled by a stroke. His outlook wasn't promising. We had Jillian packed and at the airport as soon as we could. We hugged and kissed, and in that moment realized that we were probably saying goodbye permanently. Jillian started crying. I just tried to hug her closer to me. When they called her plane, we separated for the final time. Her parting words were, "I'll never forget you or ever stop loving you." I maintained my composure until I got in my car. Then I cried. I was alone and it hurt terribly. I sat there and realized that my anger towards Melinda at the time of our divorce had masked a lot of pain. Pain I had never really dealt with. Then my single and available status had distracted me from any serious introspection. My time with Jillian had changed all of that. It cured me of my anger toward Melinda and reopened my heart to love. Since it was now Sunday morning, I drove to the house. Melinda and the kids realized something was wrong immediately. When I told them what had transpired, they were very sympathetic. Melinda just took over. She made me breakfast, then lunch, and finally dinner. The two of us ended up talking until 1 in the morning, and then she went home. I didn't sleep well that night at all. During the week, I talked to Jillian a couple of times. Our conversations only finalized what we had both sensed at the airport. Jillian's dad was going to take a long time in recovery and Jillian was going to stay and help her mom. I was really depressed. The kids were aware of what was going on and were incredibly supportive. Nevertheless, that Friday I found myself very much alone. The kids were out with friends, and I had long since thrown out my little black book. Jillian had cured me of my prowling ways, and I had no desire to return to them. I was contemplating dinner when the doorbell rang. Melinda stood there with a pizza, a six-pack, and a comforting smile. I returned the smile, took the six-pack out of her hand, and followed the aroma of the pizza as she walked past me into the house. We had a delightful evening, chatting into the wee hours again. I was truly sorry to see her go home. Surprisingly, I slept fairly well that night. The next day, Saturday, had a very similar outlook. The kids had plans. I called Melinda at 3 in the afternoon and asked her if I could treat her to dinner. She demurred at first, but gave in when I threatened to show up at her door with a bunch of Chinese takeout. Melinda cut right to the chase. "Are you asking me out, Tim?" Her tone was conversational as much as interrogatory. I noted the ambiguity in the obviousness of our conversation. Man, she was cagey. She was leaving it for me to define. What she didn't know was that I had thought this through before calling her. Exactly that. Exactly what? Have you ever heard a smile? I was sure I was. What you just said. I wasn't going to get caught so easily. So you were then. There was the slightest hint of wariness. Asking me out on a date. Yes, I am. I was quietly confident and let an easy pause complete that thought. Then I spoke quickly. Unless you have other plans, I certainly do not want to impose on you. Perhaps another time would be better? No. She spoke a little too loudly and eagerly. I don't have anything important planned. Nice recovery. All right. I dialed it way back. Well, if it's not a problem, I'll pick you up about 7, that okay? 7 sharp is good. She sounded comfortable. I waited for the inevitable. Ah, Tim. So what kind of place do you have in mind? The question as to whether or not this was a date paled in comparison to this question. This was the real question. This wasn't about what to eat. This was about what to wear. If clothes make the man, then the way a woman dresses tells you. Shit, I had no idea. I played my trump card. I know of no woman who is better able to look good for any occasion than you. I'll pick you up at 7. Bye. I hung up immediately. In the next moment, garbled syntax aside, I was hit by a full-fledged panic attack. I had just asked my ex-wife out on a date. What the hell was I doing? Was I serious here? And if I was serious, just what exactly was I serious about? I had thought that I'd thought this all through thoroughly. Now I wasn't so sure. Was this some kind of a rebound thing because of Jillian? Was I just F with Melinda? Or was I F around with Melinda? Or was I thinking that I wanted to F Melinda? I was alternately horny and horrified. I nearly called her a half-dozen times. The problem was I wasn't sure why I was calling her back. Was I canceling or clarifying? And just what was I clarifying? I had a dozen different internal conversations about what was going on. I wasn't in agreement with any of them. Finally, I decided to take a shower. It ended up being a long shower. An unintended erection had to be firmly handled. Showered, shampooed, and shaved, I was no closer to resolution. I had no idea what I was doing asking Melinda out on a date, there I said the D word, or what I was going to wear. I walked out of the bathroom and into the unknown. I wasn't alone. Melinda was standing in front of the mirror doors of the walk-in closet. She had a short red dress in one hand and a pair of jeans and a tank top in the other. I'm just not sure, Tim. What do you think? I couldn't think. I was standing naked in front of my just as naked ex-wife. How could I possibly think? Blood was flooding into a fact not lost on Melinda. Your recovery time has certainly improved with age. That answered the question as to how long she had been here. She fixed me with her gaze. No, it wasn't a gaze. It was more like fixing me in her sights. Maybe if you tell me what you want, Tim, I'll have a better idea about where we're going. I was paralyzed, unable to speak or move. Dinner and our date were no longer the issue. Where were we going? Well, one part of me defiantly knew where it wanted to go. My heart was really pounding away quite dramatically. Heart rate up a bit, Tim? Blood pressure looks healthy. Did Jillian do that? Did she like you that way? I must say, Tim, it's very striking, very compelling, and very, very attractive. Don't you agree, Tim? I was out of my depth here. I was speechless. I nodded. I'm itchy down there too. You probably wouldn't believe how itchy I've been. Melinda wrapped her arms around my neck, simultaneously pulling and jumping onto me. Melinda, I don't think we should be doing this. Melinda released one arm, relaxed the other. That was more than I could take. I spun around and pined her against the wall. We slowly sank to the floor, still joined together. That's how the kids found us. I'd forgotten completely about them. They'd come home to get ready for their dates when they'd heard Melinda scream. They'll probably be scarred for life. That night the kids went out on their dates. Melinda and I went on ours, sort of. Halfway through dinner, neither of us could handle the tension before us. We went home and effed like bunnies. The next morning we were awakened by the kids knocking on the bedroom door. Safely covered up, we invited them in. Their expressions were unreadable, something resembling wary, weary, and waiting. Are you guys back together? Nothing like the directness of youth. I took advantage of your father last night. Melinda's voice was firm, with a tinge of sadness. She was inhaling for whatever she planned on saying next when I interrupted. Yes, she took advantage of the opportunity for us to look at reconciliation. If it's okay with her and with the two of you, I think she and I should move back in here together. As soon as possible. Today even. What? The bed was shaking with Melinda's trembling. I think we both need lots of counseling and time and patience, but I really don't see any other alternatives. Do you? Melinda's answer was intensely physical. She threw herself on me and started kissing me. I heard the bedroom door slam and a muffled yeah from the other side. Melinda had the situation and me well in hand. You have no idea how thoroughly I am going to make sure you never regret this. Even if it takes the rest of my life. She was thorough, all right, very, very thorough. I decided the rest of our lives would just about cover it.